Hi, my name is Wojtek Wodzicki. I'm the president and CEO of NGEx Minerals. I'm a geologist by training. NGEx Minerals is a Lundin Group exploration company focused on Chile and Argentina, and in particular on our flagship Los Helados deposit, which is one of the largest undeveloped copper gold deposits in the world. And then we've also got a significant exploration portfolio around Los Helados.
Wojtek, thank you for the introduction. Really nice to meet you. You last did a Crux interview in February of this year. So much has changed since then. You've raised some money, you've had some exploration success, but there's also been some bad news along the way. First, I mean, not least the markets have been pretty brutal, but perhaps the worst news of all is Lucas Lundin. He died in the summer. And you must have had a long association with him.
Yeah, I have. Lucas hired me for the Lundin Group in 2007. And over those years, he was not just a boss, but became a friend. So it's a big loss.
Yeah.
We're all going to miss him, but one of the things that he did was he prepared his sons very, very well to take over. So I don't think the Lundin Group is going to miss a beat, but Lucas was, really irreplaceable. I mean, he really was a one-of-a-kind person.
Yeah, very, very inspiring man. I had the privilege to go on a couple of field trips with him, which were very entertaining. And I see that the catchphrase for NGEx is "No guts, no glory." That's one of his phrases, isn't it? Or
yeah, it was actually the title of Adolf Lundin, the founder of the Lundin Group's autobiography, and it was definitely the motto that he lived by, and certainly the motto that Lucas lived by. And NGEx, I mean, one of the reasons we gave it that name was because this is in a lot of ways the classic sort of exploration company that built the Lundin Group. This was exactly the kind of jurisdiction, the kind of targets that both Lucas and his dad really liked, and that helped them build the Lundin Group into what it is today.
Gosh, and I've got so many points of contact, and there's so much activity by the Lundin Group in that area. But before we get into that, well, let's start with that, because I know Lundin Gold particularly well because I work in Ecuador. But when I look at the map of where NGEx is in Chile and Argentina, I see that you've got your kind of 130 odd Ks southeast of Candelaria, and there is Copiapó, and there is the Candelaria mine, which is a Lundin mining project, and you've got Jose Maria over the border, which has got Lundin mining in it. There's a lot of it's your neighborhood, isn't it? There's a lot of Lundin presence in that corner of the world.
Yeah, I mean the projects that Lundin Mining, NGEx Minerals, and Filo Mining are working on were all projects that grew out of an initial effort by the original NGEx Resources, which we started in 2008, and that company, which I've run since 2008, made these three discoveries: Jose Maria, Filo del Sol, and Los Helados. So, there's definitely a long Lundin history in this area, and we've split it up into three separate companies, but it's it all grew out of the same long-term Lundin effort along the Chile-Argentina border.
And the market caps of those companies now, I mean, Filo's got a market capitalization of a couple of $1 billion, and NGEx 340 US thereabouts. That's quite a differential. Is that the function that Filo had the good success story when the market was hot and it's managed to maintain its market capitalization, and that the Los Helados story came into the poorer markets of this year? Is that the differential, or is it a grade thing?
Well, it's I think it's probably good to take a little bit of a step back. So, the Filo, Jose Maria, NGEx Minerals, the whole spin-out story is probably one of the best examples of creation of market value by junior exploration companies in the last 10 years. So, that original NGEx Resources in 2008, when I first got involved, had a market cap of around $40 million. And as you mentioned, the three daughter companies of that original NGEx Resources have generated an amazing amount of value. So, led by Filo Mining, with a market cap of just over $2 billion. followed by NGEx, and then Jose Maria was taken out at a market value of around $650 million. So it was an amazing amount of value that was created, and all of that flowed through to the shareholders of that original NGEx Resources through the spinouts that we did, because they were distributions of shares to the existing shareholders. So the shareholders definitely benefited from that effort. I mean, I think the success at Filo has definitely driven that market cap. I mean, it was a combination of timing, but I think more than anything, it was driven by some pretty outstanding exploration results.
Yeah.
And Los Helados, I think I would say, is still the value play in the district. I think it was a little bit overshadowed by the results at Filo. It was a little overshadowed by Jose Maria being pushed ahead, at a feasibility stage, and then taken over and pushed towards construction. So, it was a little bit of an earlier stage story. It sort of got a little bit forgotten about. But I think we've started to remedy that. A year ago, the market cap of NGEx was around $75 or $80 million. So we've, as we've kind of refocused the market's attention on that project, as we delivered some good drill results, NGEx has actually been the best performing stock by a significant margin among the Lundin Group mining and exploration companies. So
in what time frame?
Over the last year. Actually, pick a time frame over the last year and year to date. It's significantly outperformed all of the companies in the group. That's on the back of, and that's despite the tough market. And really, that's on the back of, I think, the value play that Los Helados was and continues to be, and then on the back of some really good exploration results. So not a lot of people know that. NGEx has actually dramatically outperformed all of our Lundin Group peers.
I see that the resource, you've got whatever it is, 2 billion tons at kind of just under 0.39% copper equivalent. Is that right?
It's 2 billion tons of 0.5 copper equivalent.
0.5 copper equivalent. Sorry, I got that number wrong. That was released in 2019, and yet your share price run was really into the middle of 2021. It was you were at 60 cents in late 2019 or early 2020, and you got up to $4. And yes, there's been a correction, but it's rare to see that value growth post resource.
Yeah, and that's really driven by the work that we did in the first half of this year. So, I guess in the first phases of drilling out Los Helados, we focused on getting to the limits of what we thought were the limits of the system. You're drilling wide-spaced holes and trying to successfully define a couple of billion.
The envelope.
Resource.
Yeah.
And, that's what that kind of average 0.5 copper equivalent grade reflects. But what we've done over the last year is really focus in on the high grade portions of that system, and what we've successfully been able to do is refocus the exploration effort around these kind of high grade nuggets within that overall resource. And we've successfully been able to expand the potential for that, and a lot of that was driven by what we learned geologically at Filo, because Los Helados and Filo are the same age deposit, same age. They're both about 15 million years old. They lie along the same major structural trend, and they're basically very, very similar systems. The difference being that Los Helados is more deeply eroded. So we're looking about 700 meters deeper than we are at Filo, but the overall structural controls and the overall architecture of the system is very, very similar. So at Filo, we've started to see that deposit has these high-grade centers within it, and it is really a series of high-grade centers. And so we started to think, well, being the exact same kind of deposit, the same age, forming in the same structural environment, did we have potential for that same phenomenon at Los Helados? And it turns out that we did. So we took those geological ideas earlier this year, started to drill test them, put out some of the best drill holes that we've ever had at Los Helados, and that's what drove that run from 60 cents to 450. Obviously in a more favorable market, but we've been able to preserve that value when a lot of our peers haven't over the last 6 months of tougher markets.
And remind me looking at the map, what's the distance between the two? Is it around 15 k's between Filo and?
It's around, depending on where you kind of put the pin at Filo, it's about 15 or 20 kilometers.
Okay, and you've got Potro Cliffs in the middle. But
Potro Cliffs is exactly in the middle. Sits on that same structural trend. Is the same age system, and that's one of the things that makes that a super exciting target.
And within Los Helados, what did you use as the vectors towards those high grade shoots? Are you using kind of trace element ratios? Is it geophysical? Is it?
It's a variety of things, and it's really a combination of updating our understanding of the geological controls on high grade mineralization. That was a significant effort late last year and early this year. So we basically were able to pin down the highest grade mineralization. And, when you look at these overall bulk resources over billions of tons, it tends to kind of mask, it masks some of those high grade zones. So what we did was we focused in on areas where we were seeing better than 1% copper, and then started to look at what sort of rocks were we seeing in those areas. And we started to see consistent patterns. And then, we started to look for other areas where we saw those sorts of rocks, maybe into areas where there was less drilling. And then one of the key tools, and really what provided the breakthrough in this high-grade exploration at Los Helados, was revisiting the resistivity data set that we had. So resistivity is a as a geophysical technique that measures the ability of a rock to transmit an electrical current. And in a very simple-minded way, the more altered a rock, the more metal there is in it, the better it is at transmitting electricity, the lower the resistivity. And what we noticed is that the existing high-grade mineralization that we had, higher grade mineralization that we had at Los Helados, the kind of 0.8 to 1% material, was coincident with low resistivity areas. And then we saw that those low resistivity areas extended out into areas that we had previously thought of as kind of on the edges or kind of outside the edges of the system. And the drilling that we did in the first half of this year basically tested those two ideas. Areas where we had nearby or holes that were a couple hundred meters away that had that distinctive type of breccia mineralization, and the coincident resistivity low. And basically every hole that we drilled into that combination resulted in some pretty spectacular drill results, and that's what we're following up now.
I understand from reading, it seemed as if there were different breccia types, some which was high grade, some which are low grade, and it was the flanking breccias on the southern side which were particularly interesting, and then it was open to the north.
Yeah, and I guess they're and this is one of the ways to look at it. They're flanking in the sense that they're on the edge of our current drill pattern. But I think what we're starting to realize is that the edge of the drill pattern is not necessarily the edge of the system. And so, these high grade areas that we're seeing, called the Phoenix zone and the Alicanto zone, that we're seeing kind of out on the edges of the current drill pattern, actually have some of the best copper and gold grades that we've hit in the deposit. And that's not typical of being on the edge of the system. And I think what that's made us realize is that maybe we don't fully understand, we haven't fully defined the edges of it. And these new high grade zones are, kind of potentially separate high grade centers, separate porphyry centers that, are part of a larger Los Helados system that we haven't fully defined yet. So it was a super exciting result from the drilling this year.
Two things. One is you talk about 3 holes which were kind of interrupted by the winter season.
Yeah.
So can you go back into them? I mean, were they cased?
Yeah, we have. So I was just down in Chile last week. Just kind of looking in on the beginning of the program, and just talking with the guys on site about laying out this upcoming program. So we've just started that. So we re-entered one of the holes that we left at the end of last season, successfully got to the bottom of that, and are continuing to drill it. And that's a hole that will test the northern extent of the Phoenix zone, which is one of those high grade zones that we drilled last year. And then the second drill is working on a hole that's drilling towards what we hope will be an extension of the Alicanto zone, which is on the northwest edge of the current drill pattern.
Okay. And are you essentially drilling from surface? I mean, are some of these deeper zones, I mean, will you ever want to kind of drill a mother hole and do directional drilling or daughter wedges
So
off that?
Yes, exactly. So that was one of the things I was down to take a look at. So we are going to be doing directional drilling, and we've got the directional drilling team on site, and that's exactly what we're going to do. That'll save us a substantial number of meters. So for the listeners that aren't familiar with directional drilling, it's a technique that was originally developed in the oil and gas industry. It's something that's used for some of the horizontal wells that you might have heard of for fracking. But basically it's a tool that allows you to direct the drill bit in whatever direction you want. And so typically what you do, especially if you're drilling deeper mineralization, you put in a pilot hole that goes down to a depth of, whatever. In our case, that might be 500 meters or something like that. And then you have daughter holes that splay off that. So what you're doing is you're not having to re-drill the upper part of the hole every time. And so it saves a lot of meters. And this is going to be a really good way for us to define some of these new zones, or at least the deeper part of some of these zones. Because I guess what I want to stress is that although some of these holes are deep, in a lot of cases, we've got good mineralization actually from, fairly close to the surface. So, we're drilling deep because the mineralization goes deep, not necessarily because it starts deep.
And in your presentation, you talk about kind of defining 200 million tons or more than 200 million tons at 0.8% copper equivalent. What are you trying to do this year? Are you just trying to kind of keep opening up the envelope of mineralization, or are you going to be trying to wrap around a resource to do an update from the 2019 resource to present to the market?
Yeah, that sort of depends on results. So the roughly 200 million tons, that's what we have now. That's kind of within that current, that's the higher cutoff grade material within the couple of billion ton resource. So I guess what we're going to be doing what we're hoping to be doing is to significantly add to that. Whether or not we get to actually defining resources in that Phoenix zone and Alicanto zone will sort of depend on how the drilling goes. But that's certainly our objective. Our objective is to do enough drilling in those two areas, to fully define extent, geometry, and hopefully be able to put some numbers around them. But that'll depend on, it'll partly depend on how quickly we close things off. Like right now things are wide open, so it sort of depends on how the drilling goes in those two areas. But the end goal is to significantly build on that 200 million tons that we currently have. And
you've just raised $30 million Canadian. You're going to just effectively keep drilling while you can. I mean, value through the drill bit, exploration. Do you think you're going to get that the plan is to get rewarded by that in the market?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think if you look at our share price performance over the last year, it's definitely driven by drill results. Now, we know that the current market is different than it was, 6 to 8 months ago, but we still feel that good drill results are going to be rewarded. And I think that's just driven by the lack of a lot of exploration stories out there. So yeah, we're certainly expecting and hoping that our share price is driven by what we expect and we hope are going to be good drill results out of Los Helados. And then, as the year goes on and we drill some of our earlier stage exploration targets like Potro Cliffs, that's going to be another set of drill results that are going to drive our stock.
The most recent capital raise, 30 million raised, 12 million from existing shareholders, so 18 million from new. Is that is that institutions coming in and taking a look at you? It's a good question. And it was actually that raise was really interesting. So the Lundin family trusts hold around 36% of NGEx, so they came in and they participated. But we also brought in a significant number of new investors, and that included a really good mix. So we targeted some institutional money, like especially institutions that are able to put money into, I guess for them, smaller cap companies like NGEx. And that was a mix of Canadian, European, and London-based institutional funds. We've always had a strong following from family office type money out of Sweden,
Switzerland that puts money into a lot of Lundin companies. And then we had a significant amount of money come in from kind of high net worth and retail investors in both Canada and Sweden. So it was a good mix of institutional, retail, and then kind of long-term sticky family office type money, which includes the Lundin family trusts. So we're really happy with how that raise went. We're really happy with some of the new shareholders we were able to attract and the existing shareholders that we were able to keep. I think it was very successful. I mean, we started out to raise $20 million, but there was a lot of demand, and we ended up upsizing to 30.
When was the previous capital raise to this one? And at what price was that?
It was almost exactly a year ago, and that was $20 million at 80 cents. So I think with the share price performance over the last year, despite the tough markets, we made people a significant amount of money over the last year, and people liked how we invested that money and the value that we were able to generate from it. And that's why we got a lot of support for this raise.
And of course, Los Helados is in Chile, Potro Cliffs is in Argentina, as is Valle Ancho. There's been so much change in Chile at the moment. There's been so much uncertainty. There have been environmental permits which have not been granted for a couple of high-profile projects, drilling permits not been awarded. It's not just been resources. It's been, the new environmental minister has refused quite a lot of other general applications. Can the constitution was knocked back. The new draft constitution was knocked back. So can you just kind of comment a little bit, please, on Chile and how those conversations are going regarding permitting and the like?
Yeah, I mean, for us as an exploration project, I guess there have been fewer permitting challenges than what some of the more advanced projects and new mines have faced. But I would say, over the 15 years that NGEx has worked in Chile, the permitting environment has definitely gotten, I guess, stricter. Maybe a little bit. I mean, it's gotten more involved, I guess, is maybe the right way. So, we've always ended up getting the permits, but the process and the wait times have definitely gotten longer over time. We haven't had problems to date. We try to do everything right. It has gotten more challenging, but I think in the grand scheme of things, Chile is still, an excellent jurisdiction to work in. It is where 25% of the world's copper is produced. It's got 40% of the world's resources. It's a mining country. I think kind of environmental standards are at, the rest of Western world levels. The permitting is still faster than a lot of jurisdictions, but, maybe not what it was 10 years ago. But
did the royalty regime change this year for the scale of operation that Los Helados is likely to be?
It did. I mean, Los Helados is a big deposit, so it would be under that. It would exceed the limit that the new tax regime. But I guess one thing I'd like to point out about that new tax regime is that, in the end, all it did was bring Chile up to an effective tax rate that is similar to what's charged in the US or Australia or Canada. It's, the Chilean effective tax rate was significantly lower than that. And what the recent changes do is, I think in a fairly investor-friendly way, bring the effective tax rate for the Chilean government up to similar levels of, other mining countries. So, I don't feel like there's been anything excessive done there. It just levels Chile up with other major mining jurisdictions. I
had heard that the Chilean Mining Authority looked quite closely at the tax regimes in other South American countries, but what you've effectively said is that they've cast that view wider and they've looked globally. Yeah,
they wanted to make sure that Chile remained a competitive jurisdiction, and I think they've successfully done that.
And corporate interest, I mean, I know it's slightly different for you guys because you've got that skew to Lundin Mining, but where that dialogue is so dynamic and so natural. Do you have approaches? Do you spend a lot of your time speaking to other members of industry? I mean, is that part of your kind of outreach role as CEO and president?
Yeah, for sure, and that's part of I guess the Lundin Group's business model is, we're always open to agreements, partnerships, whatever. So that's a big part of my role. And there has been a lot of third-party interest in the overall Vicuña district, which includes Jose Maria, Filo, and Los Helados. And we've got Japanese partners at Los Helados who own and operate the Caserones mine, which is 15 kilometers to the north of Los Helados. We've had BHP express a significant interest in the overall district through the stake that they took in Filo. And I think, in particular, that BHP investment in Filo, I think, brought a lot of eyes, not just to Filo, but to the overall district. So, yeah, for sure, there's been a lot more major company interest, in the whole district.
I was speaking to one of the BHP geologists recently. He told me that the BHP target is to be for assets which are capable of producing over 500,000 tons, was it 600,000 tons of copper on an annual basis?
Yeah. So, that's definitely the potential that they've seen in that overall district. I mean, they've made the investment in Filo, but they're clearly, they're obviously aware of the other deposits in the district.
And that third party interest, is it at all affected by Chile or Argentina? Is there kind of a preference for jurisdiction, or are they more technically led?
All of the I guess the differences between the countries, that definitely affects different people. Some people have focused on a lot of the uncertainty in Chile. I think a lot of that has been resolved. Like you said earlier, there was a lot of concern about the Constitution that was pretty resoundingly voted down in a referendum. The tax regime has been kind of settled now. I think a lot of that uncertainty on the Chilean side has been reduced. Argentina is, while we've got over 30 years as the Lundin Group working in Argentina, we've never had any problem working there. We've got good relationships. We see Argentina as a positive place to work with a lot of potential. Other people are maybe a little bit more headline driven, are not as familiar with the country as we are, and so they have more concerns. But I think as they get to know what we've done in Argentina, what we've been able to do, I think we're able to reduce some of those concerns that people have. I think both jurisdictions, they're different, but there's a lot of potential to productively work in both of them. We actually don't. It's kind of six of one, half dozen of the other. We don't see a huge difference between working in Chile and Argentina. We kind of like both.
Your Argentinian assets are all within the San Juan province, aren't they? That's kind of almost like a kind of a country within a country in terms of its tax regime and its approach to natural resources.
Yeah, I think that's important to remember, is that Argentina is a federal country. The provinces control the natural resources. They're also the primary permitting agency when you're out to get your environmental permits. And San Juan is the major mining province in Argentina, and has been an excellent place to work. Not just for us, but for other companies.
And you can get your money out.
Sorry.
You can get your money out of Argentina. You can extract dollars.
That's one of the key things that's being negotiated by all mining companies. So that's part of the fiscal stability discussions that Lundin Mining is having at Jose Maria. That is, in the past, that has been one of the recent past, that's been one of the issues in Argentina. But I think that's something that's going to be resolved. If it hasn't already, I'm not familiar with I'm not sure of the exact details, but I believe part of the fiscal stability negotiations for any major mining investment are I believe, are going to involve, or are going to need you to be able to take dollars out to pay back.
Yeah. That's crucial, isn't it?
That'll happen. As projects get developed, obviously people are going to need to be able to get money out to pay back debt.
And in just kind of stepping back to the kind of at a project level, what you're going to be doing this over the next 12 months or so, have you divvied up a drill program in rough meters between Los Helados, Potro Cliffs, and Valle Ancho? Have you got kind of rough budget?
Yeah. So, all of our drill programs are always a little bit open-ended because they're definitely results driven. But and not in general terms, we're planning around 15,000 meters of drilling at Los Helados. I think that may actually be reduced a bit by the use of directional drilling. I think we'll get kind of more bang for the same buck at Los Helados, but roughly 15,000 meters worth of drilling. Potro Cliffs. I mean, we should talk about that target because that's probably one of the most exciting drill targets I've seen in a long time. That'll be one, but that's one of those very much results-driven programs. So we'll be putting the first couple of drill holes into that, and then if we have success that we expect to have, then we'll build out that program. But it'll be kind of hole by hole, and we'll drill as much as we can at Potro Cliffs. Valle Ancho, that's a project located further to the north here. That's actually in Catamarca province. We drilled that with our own money earlier this year. We're likely to look for a partner for that project. So I think Valle Ancho will get drilled, but it'll get drilled with partner money. At least that's what we're anticipating.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go back to Potro Cliffs then. We in Ecuador, we're using some of this green rock vectoring where we're analyzing the kind of the trace element stuff. Are you confident that you've got so much knowledge from Filo just to the south of Potro Cliffs and Los Helados just to the north that you can go in on alteration and geophysics?
Yeah. We've basically, I think we've developed a lot of really good vectoring techniques from our work at Filo. The heart of Filo is only 7 kilometers to the south of Potro Cliffs. So, the same geophysical and geochemical and alteration vectors that work very well at Filo, we think are going to apply, or we're confident are going to apply to the Potro Cliff system as well. Because the Potro Cliffs system is basically, it's exactly the same. It's a twin to what we see at Filo. It's exactly the same rocks at surface. It's exactly kind of the same level of the system. The surface geochemistry is very similar. There's one historic shallow RC drill hole into the top of the Potro Cliff system that drilled about 100 meters of 0.45 gold. That's exactly the same as a random hole at the top of the Filo system would have hit. So, the geophysical signature, we haven't done a lot of geophysics at Potro Cliffs yet. We're going to use the same resistivity type techniques that worked really well at Filo. We're going to do those at Potro Cliffs as well. So I think we've got the pretty good targeting model that should help us there.
So what's the timing for the geophysics and then the interpretation, and then the drilling?
Yeah, the geophysics is going to start in the next couple of weeks. So sort of between now and the end of the year, and probably the technique that I'm most interested in seeing is natural source MT, which is a resistivity type technique that's been really effective at Filo. So we'll be doing that and traditional IP, like I say, between now and the end of the year. So that'll allow us to use that data for kind of finer targeting in that Potro Cliffs target.
And drilling Q2 or possibly into Q1?
We're hoping Q1. So we could probably drill tomorrow. We're just hopefully in the final phases of the permitting process for drilling Potro Cliffs. So basically, I think we'd be, we've done enough vectoring that we'd be able to start drilling once we have those drill permits in hand. So, hopefully we have those before the end of the year, and then we'd be drilling, definitely by the new year, first Q1.
I've been in the sector for 30 years, and so much is dominated by the macro and by the cycle of kind of where we are. It's only occasionally you can get an exploration story that cuts through that overlying trend. We all hope that the copper price responds well over time, and I think if you ask anybody about a copper price forecast for the year 2025 or 2026, it's going to be quite a significantly higher estimate than it is today. But am I right in saying that you're really just taking the kind of the value through the drill bit approach to exploration for the next 12 months, and almost to hell with the macro, you're targeting the good rocks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the macro, what you've got to focus on the things that you can control. And that's that's the quality of the exploration programs that you're able to put together, and and ultimately the quality of the results that you put together. And that's all you can control. And I think over the last 15 years, that approach is what's generated the value that we've been able to generate. It's trying, we're fortunate as a member of the Lundin Group to be able to finance even in difficult times. And that is the key to creating value in the resource industry. I mean, this is the ultimate, you've got to invest when no one else is investing. That's what Lucas Lundin, that's what Adolf Lundin did. That's how they made their money. You've got to invest in the low part of the cycle so you benefit from the high part of the cycle. So we have no problem ignoring kind of short-term market trends. In fact, that's exactly when you want to be investing. And then your project is ready. You've got the results, when that macro environment changes. And just to add to what you said, I mean, we have a lot of confidence that the long-term story for copper is super, super exciting. And, for any investor that can look through the next 12 to 18 months, however long that ends up being, is going to be rewarded for doing what we do, and invest when prices are low so that you benefit when prices are high. You can't wait for those high prices and then start scrambling to catch up. You've got to invest now, and that's what we're doing.
I agree with all of that. Although your most recent capital raise isn't actually that much of a kind of a contrarian thing, because the previous one was at a much lower price, and so in a sense, it's just plugging away with the drill bit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And that is the key to successful exploration. You need to be steady. It's I think we're fortunate that we're not as subject to the feast or famine trends that a lot of our peers they can raise money when everyone else can. We're able to even that out and be steady. And it's that steady consistency that delivers results. If you're super episodic and it's, a little bit one year and then a lot the next year, it doesn't work as well as steady investment, and that's where the vision of the Lundin family and the familiarity of them with the resource industry really helps. They fully understand all of that, and they back us to do that kind of exploration work.
Wojtek, thank you so much. It's been great speaking to you. If you could just give me two things you're kind of really excited to be seeing out of the news flow over the next, 6 to 9 months. Presumably it'd be one drill hole from Potro Cliffs, and timing on that, and drill results from Los Helados. But that's what I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent summary. I think in the medium term, by which I mean, the next 6 to 9 months, NGEx share price is going to be driven by, what we hope are going to be really good results from drilling out those satellite high-grade zones at Los Helados. And then, the real lottery ticket in our story, I think, is drill results from the Potro Cliffs target. I mean, this is the largest undrilled mineralized system in the Vicuña district. This would be an exciting target anywhere, but the fact that it sits, midway between 3 multi-billion ton deposits, I think lends it, just sort of even more potential. So I'm super excited about that one. I mean, it's exploration. You don't know what you're going to get, but I think, if we were successful and we were able to hit on that target, if it turns out to be what we think it might be, that'll be potentially a really significant driver for our shares.
You never know with exploration. You never know what you're going to get.
No, that's what makes it exciting. I mean, I guess the thing is, we're pretty good at this. We've been, we know that region really well. We've been very successful explorers. So, let's hope we can build on that.
Great. Thank you very much. I look forward to keeping an eye out on the news flow.
Great. Thanks a lot.